Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, and it's a big day here at PAC 14. You know, one of the hardest things in my life is fulfilling the promise that goes with being Ronnie Bassett's son, and what I go through now being Will Bassett's dad. But the hardest thing I have is being Phil Tilghman's successor here on 101. So we brought Phil back just to see how he's doing.
Well, I'm doing great, and I can tell you, you're doing a really good job.
I know it's hard for you to say that.
No, it isn't hard because I've watched, I think, every one of your interviews.
You do watch, and you send me little pieces of advice.
Yeah. And I thought I know you're doing a very good job. You have very interesting guests, and let's face it, that's the key.
That's the key.
To be able to pick up the phone and call Jimmy Perdue.
Right.
And he says, yeah, I'll talk to Greg Bassett
That's not what he
today.
said, but actually, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But yes, and you know, I should have brought all the mail I get where people want to compare me to you, and how many people I've disappointed.
Oh my.
They complain that I don't wear a necktie, which you didn't always wear a necktie. You did sometimes.
Most of the time. Well, I wore one today.
You wore one today, and I wore one today as well. Your Christmas tie.
The last time I had a tie on was a year ago when I was no.
And we're marking a year. It's been a year that I've been doing this.
Gee whiz. It's going by. It seems like.
And it's been way more fun than I ever thought it would ever be.
Well, it's obvious. That's
yeah.
It's obvious that you're enjoying it and that you're relaxed in doing it.
Yeah.
And
there've been a few that have been tense.
You allow your guests to. It's their half hour.
Right.
And all you do is kind of.
Well, I try to inject myself, but you can tell I'm so desperate to talk about me, to insert stuff about me in there. So I just need to back off, I think.
No, I think you do it. It's a good mix.
Now, you did it for 10 years?
I think it was 600 shows, something like that.
So was it fun the whole time? I mean, will I continue to have fun, or will I start to get tired of this?
I think as long as you have interesting guests.
Right.
And the challenge is to find interesting guests. I mean, the fact that you had John Phoebus to talk about the judges,
right.
That's an extremely interesting
right.
and a great interview.
And he's in the news this week because we're going to appoint a judge here shortly.
Yeah.
Or the commission's going to name 3 nominees for the governor to pick. But
and his insight was,
yeah.
I thought was very good.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with John.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah, even though, like you, he's a Republican, he's not a bad Republican.
Well, he's not Republican enough, which is why he didn't win the Republican primary in Somerset County. And I'm not Republican enough, according to my Republican friends.
Uh-huh. Well,
are you Democratic enough?
I don't know. I was 4 times, but I don't know about today. You know, in today's political climate, what is enough and what's too much, and
right.
You know,
who knows?
Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. If those two are the nominees of the 2 respective parties,
Bermuda's looking good.
I just
taxes are high there, though.
Yeah.
Golf year round.
Oh well, that's true.
Yeah. Good food. So, do you miss this?
A little bit.
Your interview with Kurt Schmoke this summer was awesome.
What a great guy.
Well, I never could have done that interview. I would have been rolling my eyes like, who does he think he is? But you were able to get stuff out of him. And when you do that little technique, which great interviewers do, where you just name names, William Donald Schaefer, and just to see him react to that was awesome. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I got that. The first interview I did for the Maryland Association of Counties was Harry Hughes.
Right.
And
a man with no personality at all.
But to me, as a big hero.
Right.
He gave me a scholarship, a senatorial scholarship to Washington College.
Right.
And I told him during the interview, I said, you know, my mom, every time you ran for anything, my mom would make her little pinafores and invite all the ladies, and the ladies.
Harry was from Denton, from the Upper Shore.
Yeah, he was from Denton. My parents were from Federalsburg.
Right.
And she'd have a tea for Harry Hughes, and all the ladies of the community would be agog because he
was a handsome man.
He was the best-looking politician
right.
that there ever was, you know. And I told him that, and he said, "Well, I always had a lot of respect for the opinions of the ladies." And
but he's not a warm guy. He's not a funny guy. But you were able to get warmth and humor out of him, which was amazing to me.
Well, the technique of just naming a name.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, William Donald Schaefer and Harry Hughes were just like this forever. And to name somebody like that. And then, of course, I named Paul Sarbanes, and he had nothing but praise and said he was the smartest guy
Yeah.
that he ever was involved with. And I said, well, you know, he's from Salisbury, and most of us from Salisbury, we claim to be smart. And,
Right.
And, you know, the same thing. And Rick Pollitt was sitting there, and he looked at me, and he looked at Rick, and he said, well, there are a few exceptions to that. So he had some humor, but Kurt Schmoke had, of the three that I've done, which
Well,
is
and Glendenning, another serious guy with no sense of humor, no
No.
warmth at all, but you were able to make him. His hair is kind of hippie-ish looking. He's completely off the anyway. But and I know Paris Glendenning. He was my teacher at Maryland. He was my professor, and I TA'd for him, so I know him thick and thin when he was nobody. As well, I was nobody, but I'm still nobody. But anyway, he never had any sense of humor at all. But you were able to make him into an affable guy.
Well, thank you. I was more concerned about Paris Glendenning
Yeah.
than the other two, or anybody that I've interviewed, because I wondered how am I, you know, because, well, he's
Yeah.
Paris Glendenning,
Yeah.
you know, and kind of a wonk kind of
Yeah.
guy, but anyway, thank you.
Yeah.
I enjoyed doing those. I don't know whether I'm going to do that again. It depends on the Maryland Association of Counties whether they ask me to do it, and if they do, then
Well, you know,
I'll go to Ocean City.
I have people all the time. I'll call them and ask them to come on this show, and they ask if you could interview them instead of me.
No, I doubt that.
So if you ever want to come on, I've always told you, just it's your thing. I'm sitting in your chair.
No, it isn't. It's your thing, and you've earned it. So
Well, I appreciate that. Now, a year ago, you weren't so happy with how things were politically around here. We just had an election. There was a Republican sweep, new county executive. You had a lot of concerns about where the county might be headed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a year later. What do you think?
well, we might survive it. And I tell you what I am excited about is what's happened in the city.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And you've done the interviews, and I've watched the interviews, and Jake Day he has so much promise, and I hope he can keep that attitude that we can do it.
Right.
We can do it, and we will do it. And interestingly, I was at a luncheon of past presidents of the Chamber of Commerce right here at the college about a month ago. And Memo Derricker, who's also a past president,
Right.
and he said, you know what I've noticed is that in Wicomico County, we have lost the ability to say, or the feeling, no matter what comes up, we have the wherewithal to overcome it or find the solution or move forward. And I got thinking about that, and I thought, there's a lot of negative thinking in the county.
Yeah.
And not just Wicomico County. There's negative feeling all over.
Right.
But Jake Day has been able to make us think, well, gee whiz, you know what? I think he can lead us into being our best.
Yeah.
That's just wonderful.
Well, my thinking is so backwards on everything. So, like right now in this city, the Lot 1 issue, which we don't talk a lot about. So, Lot 1 is the big parking lot in the middle of downtown. And for years, people have wanted to do something about it. But everyone who's got an idea, we're all like, that's not going to work. That's not going to be a success. It's not. And they've put the thing out for bid. It's been sold. The guys at Devreco Real Estate, Brad Gillis and Joey Gilgerson have bought
Bless
it.
their hearts.
Right. And they're going to build something there, and it's either going to be a monstrosity or it's going to be a success. And all the cynical people like me are like, that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But Jake's like, let's try it. It's going to work. It's going to be a success. Yeah. I mean, and that's a leadership that I haven't seen in a long time, where you want to take a chance and you're going to make something a success and make things better. And it just inspires the heck out of me.
Yeah, and absolutely sure and confident that you can do it.
Right.
And that's where it starts.
So when people like me are like, that's not going to work. Yeah. No, you don't know what you're talking about. It's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're right. I don't know what I'm talking about, and it's going to work.
Well, you read Mitzi Perdue's latest book about Frank Perdue.
Yeah.
And one thing that really comes through on that no was not something that ever got in his way.
He was going to do it with his idea.
It was almost like, Frank, you can't do that. It would be the perfect thing to say to him if you want him to do something.
Right.
You just can't do it. So,
right.
What an interesting guy.
And that's what leaders are.
Yeah. Yeah. And and there are plenty of them in our community right now. And looking at it as a 74-year-old guy, I think back about Henry Parker. You know,
Right.
he used to call me the kid.
Right.
Prince Philip is what he called me.
Prince Philip.
He was King Henry, and I
Yeah.
was Prince Philip. But the leaders are out there, and they're in business, and they're at the university and the hospital and at Purdue and everything, and and they'll percolate up to the top.
Yeah.
And it'll become evident that, hey, that guy's got a good idea, and it doesn't matter the fact that he's only 30 years old.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that's the guy you want to have the good ideas.
That's the key.
Yeah.
You know, that negativity is so funny. Right now downtown, they're tearing up the Riverwalk, and everyone complains to me, you need to write a story. They're tearing up the Riverwalk. It's noisy all the time. There's pile drivers. This is crazy. You know, what are we getting for this? And everyone's complaining. But I know next spring they're going to have a beautiful Riverwalk, and they're all going to say, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
And then this winter, they're going to completely destroy Main Street, tear that up, and put in the Main Street plan.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to complain about it forever.
Well, we all complained about South Salisbury Boulevard.
Right, and now it's beautiful.
How long is it going to take? Well, now
It took way too long, but it's
finished.
It's beautiful, and they're paving that last section in front of Giant this morning, today. So, yeah. But it did cost, I was reading in the Salisbury Independent, my favorite new newspaper.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Guy Vinny, who's closing up La Roma.
Yeah.
He's selling La Roma, and he complained about the state's drainage thing there affecting his business. That was the last straw for him, he said.
Yeah. Well, Vinny's tired.
Right, 37 years.
And he owns that property.
Right,
And that property didn't go down in value.
right. Someone's going to be writing him a check every month now.
I think so. Yeah, and I hope so. I mean, he has
Right.
worked hard.
Right.
He's toiled at that business, and that's a tough business. The restaurant business, it's tough.
Yeah. Mike Dunn wrote a little column for us about Vinny, and my favorite line in it is when Vinny came to town in 1978, he didn't know anybody. But now, as he's closing his business, everybody knows him, and he knows everybody.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. A lot of stories about Vinny's
Yeah.
La Roma.
So the big news at your house this summer was that your wife, Carol, won the senior golf championship at Green Hill.
You know what that means?
You have to call her champion?
Yes. Well, for years I've been genuflecting every time I come into the house anyway. But now she has a parking spot
I know that.
at Green Hill.
Yeah.
It says ladies senior 9-hole champion
Yeah.
Carol Tilghman. And I said, can I use your parking spot? She said, no, you didn't. That's for me. So anyway.
I have
No,
seen
I'm
some
not
husbands
real-
park, though, in their wives' spots there.
Yes.
I think that's wrong.
I parked in it the other day. I admit it. But, you know, the greatest thing that ever happened to my golf game is when my wife took up the game.
Right.
Because we have made golf trips. We're going to Florida in February, and we'll play golf while we're down there. Not much, but some. And we've taken trips, and we've made friends, lifelong friends, of a lot of people when, in particular, we started playing at Nassawango. And so even took a trip all the way across country with Donnie and Diane Gillis, who we met playing golf
Right.
at Nassawango.
Right.
And I tell everybody we were gone 30 days. Went
Wow.
all the way to San Diego and up through Las Vegas and all the way back and everything. Got back and we were still friends. Still speaking to
That's
each
hard
other.
to do.
Yeah, it is.
I
It is.
don't know if I just could have stayed married through that even.
I don't. Well, anyway, they are very good friends of ours, so we enjoy it.
That's great. Now, do you have more family times that you're not doing the show, or?
Yeah, I have more time. I play a lot of golf. I play Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday with a group of old guys.
And they are old.
Well, I mean, Dick Barr is the oldest, and he's 92.
And he's amazing.
It is amazing.
He gets the ball around. He really does.
Yeah, and
Dick Barr from Barr International.
Dick Young is probably
Dick
the
Young
next
from Salisbury Brick.
right, and
Which it's
good, very good friend of mine.
It's gonna be hard to be Dick's friend, isn't it?
No, it isn't.
No?
It's easy. He's one of the most generous people I've known.
Looks like Bob Barker.
Yeah, hey, he does. Yeah.
But Dick Young's a leader too. He's a guy who's got an opinion.
Oh yeah, yeah. But you give him a job to do, and
Right.
he'll do it. And he's done a lot of favors for me over the years. So I think a lot of him, and he's a very, very good friend. He and Brenda But anyway, we go down there and we take numbers. So you play with different people every
Don
time.
Ewald's in your group.
Don Ewald, a very good friend of mine. They're all good friends of mine. Judge David Mitchell,
Yes.
retired circuit court judge.
Fun guy.
John Rutenberg, retired doctor. So we have.
Well, he's a doctor of what?
Well, he was the somebody.
He was a Heine doctor, as we
Yeah,
used to
well,
say.
somebody came up to him in the mall one day. He said, "Dr. Rutenberg said, you remember me, don't you?" And he said, "Well, oh yeah." He said, "But it's the other side of you."
My favorite.
Turn around. I think I know you.
Yeah, my favorite Rutenberg line was Rutenberg. I had a friend in there, and Rutenberg was getting ready to do something to him, and he goes, "I just have to tell you, I don't know any other way to say this, but what I'm about to do is gonna hurt."
Well, you know, Roger Merrill, Dr. Merrill, was my family doctor for a long time. He did the annual physicals.
Right.
The whole time I was in politics. So I went in for my annual physical one day, and he said, "I really appreciate all you do for the public, and you're a great public servant and everything." I said, "Well, thanks a lot, doctor." And he said, "Okay, drop your pants. It's now time for the prostate check." So I turned around, you know, and dropped my drawers, and he started laughing.
I've had that happen.
I said, "What are you laughing about?" He said, "I wonder how many taxpayers in Wycomico County would like to have you in this position." Roger Merrill, oh gosh. And he would say, "If you were my brother, I would suggest you do so and so." So one day I was sitting up on the bench, and he came, and he always was a great dresser.
Yeah.
And he had this sport coat, and I just reached down like this and pulled, and that's as close as I could get to sport. I said, "If you were my brother, I'd suggest." He said, "That's my line. That's my line." Yeah. Good guy.
Now, I baited you on this before, and we didn't go very far, but the county government?
Well,
What do you see with the relationship between the county council and the county executive?
well,
A year ago, when they started this, I remember the first meeting at the chamber, Bob Culver announced that he was going to treat the county council as his cabinet, and they were going to advise him. And at the time,
well, he failed to ask him about a couple of things, like appointing John Terrell
Yeah.
as the guy at the Civic Center.
and then poor John shows up for work for a few days and then has to leave.
Yeah, because the council, you know, and
That
John
was an
Cannon,
awkward situation.
John Cannon is the leader of the county council, and he's got his own. He sets the agenda,
Right.
and he didn't feel like I assumed that he didn't feel like he was had been consulted.
Right.
And then there's the whole question of Ed Baker leaving. And,
Awkward.
And the new guy shows up and he's sitting out there, he's a great attorney.
Paul Wilbur from
And
formerly the
Paul-
city
Paul,
comes in.
You know, I don't think he's a bad choice at all.
Right.
But
They didn't
I
approve
don't
it.
think the cabinet got
The cabinet hadn't voted
asked
yet. Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, that was awkward.
So you know, it's and everybody who gets in public office has to feel their way, and on the job training. There's
Right.
a certain amount of it, because certainly nobody's ever been county executive here except Rick Pollitt.
Right.
And he had some on the job
Yes, he
training
did.
himself.
Yeah.
I mean, he made some missteps. So hopefully Bob can learn from them. And
I think there's been some stability there with Wayne Strasburg at his side. I think
No question.
Wayne has been much more valuable than I would have thought Wayne would be.
well, Wayne was extremely valuable to Rick Pollitt.
Right.
And I thought that was one of the best decisions Rick ever made.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure when Bob was elected that Wayne would go. He didn't, and I think that's one of the smartest things that
Right.
Bob Culver has done, is keep Wayne Strasburg on, because he's a very capable individual.
Yeah, I tried to watch them early on to see if there was rapport, and there was instant rapport.
Seems to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it surprised me, but because there wasn't when Bob was a county council member.
Right.
There was almost
Right.
disdain there between the two of them.
Yeah.
You know.
It-
But
it's-
anyway.
It's interesting how the roles change
Well, it
and
does. It really
needs
does.
change.
Yeah, yeah. But
But you know, Parks and Rec and Tourism, which is the premier, the diamond department of the cabinet, still doesn't have a permanent director. Pam Olin is in there on a temporary basis. Andy Wisk had the job briefly. Some
He left.
negotiation. He's left. it seemed like he might get the job.
And I thought so.
But that is, as you know, is being not the father. I guess Henry Parker was the father of that department with Gary Mackey's. But that being such a crucial department, is there something lagging there? Does it something need to be done, or is it going to be okay?
Well, I think what it is, Gary had such a well-oiled machine there that was tourism.
You
and
can
the
say
Civic
it,
Center.
kingdom. He had his own kingdom.
He did, and he had built it up and had built
Yeah.
a great rapport with a lot of people who worked out there, and a great rapport with the people who he reported to.
Right.
And but he and Bob were never going to be friends.
Right.
They were almost enemies, and so Bob used his authority and said, "You're gone."
Right.
And
Or Gary technically resigned, but yeah,
Technically.
we don't know what happened.
no,
You might know what happened.
We don't know what happened.
I
But
only know the
anyway, he's
official version of
gone.
events.
He's gone,
Yes.
and he wouldn't be gone if Rick Pollock was still the
Yeah.
county executive. Gary would still be there, and I always thought Gary would have been a good administrative director for the
Right.
county because he's a very organized kind of guy. But anyway, he isn't.
Right.
And but things have gone on because there's three different departments there with tourism.
Right.
Tourism is running well, and et cetera. And they had the little setback with trying to expand the Henry Parker complex, which was a political. It was a difficult question, and I think they came to the right conclusion.
They did. I think they did.
I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, the parcel on the other side,
It's a no-brainer. If that can work, absolutely.
yeah, it's over the Paleo Channel also. So,
But you look at what's
the
already
difference?
there,
Well,
yeah.
the trees aren't there, so
Right.
all of a sudden you don't get Mrs. Maloof and those people involved
Right.
who don't want to ever cut down any tree, and
Yeah, there's
I'm probably getting in trouble here.
No,
but that's the way
you're
it is.
free to talk now.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
awesome for you.
yeah.
You don't have a TV show.
I'm not in politics. I'm never going to run for. I'm like John Phoebus, who said on
John's
your show.
going to run for something. You
I
know,
know.
he is. He's going to be a congressman or something
Yeah,
someday.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a really good guy.
Yeah, yeah,
I loved his dad.
really.
Harry T. Phoebus Jr. I adored that man. He is the kind of Republican that I always wanted to be. He would work with Democrats.
Uh-huh.
You could say in these days he wasn't Republican enough, but he had that lineage and he knew everybody. He could get governors on the phone. And his great hero was Carlton Yank Dyes. Mr. Yank Dyes, the old delegate down there who
Oh,
started
my.
the cable franchise in Chrisfield.
Really?
And just great dynamic guys, watermen farmers, who smart, common sense, politics, and they knew how to have fun.
Yeah. I wonder, you think about Chrisfield and the damage that was done there by the hurricane, and
Yeah.
I guess they're still reeling from that
Yeah.
a little bit. But and of course the seafood industry is questionable what the future is for that. So the characters
Yeah.
that have come out of Somerset County over the years,
Isn't it amazing?
9/10 of them with some sort of nickname,
Yeah.
like Hot Dog
Right.
Simpkins, Imagine saying that there's a circuit court judge in Wycombe and that judicial district who everybody refers to as Hot Dog,
Yeah.
And,
And it's just completely normal.
and nobody thinks anything about it. Everybody's
Biggie Long.
But when there's only 5 surnames in the whole county, you got to have nicknames. They're all, I don't know. Anyway,
But-
it's just a neat area.
But was Danny's uncle or father Biggie Long?
His father,
His father's Biggie Long.
Biggie, yeah,
But to be in a meeting and say, well, Biggie,
right,
like, well, Hot Dog,
Yeah.
Hot Dog, this is Biggie, Biggie is
Yeah.
Hot Dog.
Yeah.
It's just so funny. And I wanted to bring it up with John, I didn't, but used to go to the old back room of the Washington Hotel and see Judge Horsey and Judge Long, he wasn't a judge yet, and Tony Bruce.
Oh my,
Almost coming to blows over arguments about things in the law and cases and people and stuff like that.
gosh,
And these guys could just have these verbal battles, and they were still all good friends.
yeah. Well, mentioning the attorneys who are up for the judgeship,
Yeah.
all of those guys are.
It's an all-star lineup.
They've been against each other in the courtroom before, and
Right.
they've had to sit before all the judges, and We've
Yeah,
had some very interesting judges in
you,
this.
you wonder about that. And talking with John Phoebus, John is a defense attorney. So even the most guilty people that he's defending are innocent in his mind, and he has to act like that. And he's going up against Matt Massarello and his team. They just had the high-profile case with the Pittsville embezzlement.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who was in that courtroom said, they had this woman dead to rights, but John was actually able to create an air of doubt, about whether maybe if it had been a jury trial, she might have gotten off because he was able to put that much doubt in people's minds. But they had her completely dead to rights.
Yeah.
That's what a good attorney does.
I remember Alf Truitt was the chief judge.
Who we
for
lost
a long
this
time.
year. We lost Alf this year.
I thought the world of Alf Truitt, but he came before the county council when they were building the courthouse,
Yeah,
the present courthouse.
the new courthouse.
And he had a way of swaggering, and he sat down, threw his papers down. And of course, Henry Parker, who's married to his cousin,
Right.
is sitting on the other side as president.
Now he's mad because no one's asked him anything about this new courthouse.
He's mad because he's seen what Tom Becker came up with, how they're going to decorate the courtrooms.
Right.
And the courtrooms were going to have wallpaper and and they were going to have cloth seats and et cetera, and there wasn't going to be all this mahogany in there. And he said, the courtrooms are going to look like somebody's kitchen. And I just don't like it. And so Tom Becker, and he and Tom Becker just never got along, but Tom Becker opened this folder and said, well, here's the color combinations, here what we're going to have and everything. I said, I make the motion that we stick with the original plan. And I think it was Julia Foxwell seconded the motion, and it passed, and Henry abstained. Henry didn't want to buck his wife's cousin. He didn't want to have to go home and face Nellie,
Yeah.
But
also
anyway,
Judge Truitt.
he got up and stormed out of there and wouldn't speak to me for about a year. So I'm down to Peninsula Bank one day, and he's on the other side. He said, Phil, I want to talk to you. And I said, okay. And he said, we're having this ceremony for the judges who have died in this year. Judge Pilot had died, and I don't know, 2 or 3 others. And he said, we want to have this big ceremony in the ceremonial courtroom, and it needs to be painted. And I can't get any of the county guys to agree to paint it.
This is the old courthouse.
The old ceremonial courtroom. And so I just walked right over to the county council office, and I said, Matt, paint it, get the painter. We had a painter on the.
Right.
He said, well, he's doing something at the detention center. I said, well, get him to paint the courtroom. Okay, Phil. So they painted. Well, from then on, I was golden. I was golden with Alf Truitt, and between Alf Truitt and Hot Dog Simpkins, they could fill 10 hours on here just reminiscing about things.
Yeah. I talked to Judge Truitt a couple times, and around the time that Butch Waller was getting that honor, they were naming a basketball trophy after him. And I was at that event with his son, Bruz, and his wife had just passed. And this was last winter. And he said, we'll sit down sometime this summer and we'll talk. He goes, I want to do one of your interviews in the paper. He goes, I got a lot of stuff to say. And then, damn it if he didn't die.
He passed, yeah.
And I should have, I thought everything was going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I really regret that because, he witnessed the lynching downtown. His family, the Truitt family, founding family of Salisbury, just involved in so much.
Father was the mayor.
His father was the mayor. His uncle started the Daily Times and WBOC.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So, Charlie Truitt is a hero of mine.
Yeah, of course.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
And this county is full of people like that who have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity we have with this, what is it? It's called PAC 14.
I've heard that.
And it's just a matter of allowing those people to tell their story.
Phil, we're out of time.
No!
Yes. Yeah. Your friend Tom Taylor's giving me the cut sign.
He's a good man, Tom.
He's the best.
Despite himself, he's a good guy.
I don't like the way he does my hair, but he's the best. Phil, you're going to close the show because people like the way you say the PAC 14 thing, and they don't like the way I say it. So go ahead and close the show.
Well, we'll end 2015 and have a prosperous and healthy new year. And thanks for all of us. Thanks for Greg Bassett being the new guy, the host on this show right here on Pack 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.